All right, everyone, welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's right at the heart of your AMC curriculum, the really complex world of environmental challenges. But here's the thing, we're not just going to talk about the problems, we're also going to look at the really cool, innovative ways people are trying to solve them. Ready? Let's get started. So, let's kick things off with this really powerful quote from the writer Amitav Ghosh. What he's basically saying is that the biggest hurdle for climate change isn't just about science or tech. Nope. It's actually become a huge cultural and political fight, especially in the English-speaking world. And that phrase he uses, a fault line, that's a perfect way to picture it. It really gets to the heart of why it's so hard to make progress. So, where does this fit into your studies? Well, it slots right into your AMC program. We're in TEM 2, environnementales mutations, and we're focusing specifically on Acts 2, défis environnementaux. Just so you know, everything we cover today is geared towards helping you nail those document analyses and build solid arguments for your exams. This all leads us to the big question we're going to tackle today. Why is it so hard to get meaningful environmental action? Why is it so controversial? And what are people doing about it? What new ideas are out there? So we'll break this down into two parts. First, we'll look at the obstacles, the things getting in the way. And then we'll explore the new pathways forward. Simple as that. All right, let's jump into part one, the obstacles to action. What's really stopping us? What are these huge forces that make change feel so slow? Okay, first up, let's look at the United States because it's a perfect example. Politics there is a huge factor. You can see on the slide, to get any big climate laws passed, you often need what's called a Democrat trifecta. That means they control everything. But when leadership flips, it can become a veto point, basically a dead end for climate laws. What you end up with is this total gridlock, where what happens depends more on who won the last election than what the science actually said. And this political divide doesn't just happen on its own. It's fueled by some really powerful groups. You've got massive corporate lobbying, especially from the fossil fuel industry. They use organizations like ALEC, for instance, to literally write laws for politicians that favor their business. It's a key part of what some researchers have called the whole climate denial movement. And the media plays a huge role here too, right? If the news talks about climate science like it's just a 50-50 debate, or barely covers it at all, people start to think it's not a big deal. And that gives politicians an easy out to do nothing. And listen, this is not just an American thing. Not at all. This quote from an Australian economist, Richard Dennis, shows that the same kind of ideological fight is happening all over the English-speaking world. There's this really powerful belief that any government action is bad, and that we should just let the free market figure it all out. When you have that mindset, taking big, coordinated action on the environment becomes almost impossible. And as Dennis points out, it's pretty dangerous. It can make people lose faith in democracy itself. But the roadblocks aren't just about ideas or politics. They're also about global power. And what's fascinating here, and kind of ironic, is that this is a problem created by the solution. So to go green, we need tons of raw materials, right? For batteries, for wind turbines, you name it. But look at this table. The supply of things like cobalt and rare earth elements is controlled by just a handful of countries. This creates a whole new set of problems. New power struggles, new dependencies. The race to save the planet becomes, well, the new great game of global competition. Okay, so we've laid out the political gridlock, the industry influence, the global competition. It can feel a bit overwhelming, I know, but that is definitely not the whole story. So now let's pivot. Let's look at part two and explore the new pathways to change that are popping up, often from the ground up. One of the key ideas here is something called social innovation. Now, what is that? This definition is pretty good. It's not just about inventing a new gadget. It's about any new idea, a project, a policy, whatever, that actually challenges the whole system that caused the problem in the first place. It's about changing how we do things, how we think. The key takeaway is that this is about deep transformation, not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And this picture, I think it shows what that looks like perfectly. Changing a whole system isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's complicated, it's collaborative. It's like a giant wall of sticky notes. It means getting all sorts of different people in a room to figure out the real root of the problem and just try new things. And you don't always know if it's going to work. So think about it. If the old way of just passing laws from the top down is totally blocked by politics, what do? Well, the new pathway is a shift in strategy. It's a move towards cultural persuasion. It's this idea that, hey, maybe before we can change the law, we first have to change the story. We have to change the narratives and values that people hold. And what's one of the best tools for that? Storytelling, of course. Take a look at these examples of eco-films. They don't just throw a bunch of scary charts and data at you. No, they tell personal, human stories. So a film about reforestation isn't about statistics. It's about these farmers in Iceland who are spending their whole lives bringing trees back to a barren landscape. A film about climate change becomes a story about these amazing female seaweed farmers in Tanzania trying to survive. That is what we call narrative persuasion. It makes you feel the issue because it connects it to real people. And this isn't some fringe idea, It's gaining real momentum. Here's Lydia Pilcher from the Columbia Climate School saying that investing in stories and our imagination is actually a critical part of the solution. Why? Because stories tap into our sense of care, of empathy. And you need that to get people on board for the big, tough solutions. This is being talked about at the highest levels, at places like COP29. It's a serious strategy. Okay, so let's wrap this up. We need to pull all these threads together and, most importantly, talk about how you can actually use all of this for your baccalaureate. So, in a nutshell, what have we seen? It's really a tale of two competing forces, isn't it? On one side, you have these huge obstacles, the politics, the lobbyists, the global rivalries. But on the other side, you have these new pathways pushing back. People using social innovation, thinking about the whole system, and using the power of stories to change hearts and minds. So how do you use this for an exam? It's simple. Just remember this 3-step method for building any argument. Number 1, state your idea. Make a clear point. For example, you could say, cultural persuasion is becoming a vital strategy to get around political blocks. Step 2, cite your example. Back it up with something specific. For instance, eco-films like The Resilience of Seaweed connect people to climate change on a personal level. And finally, step 3, explain your analysis. Connect the dots. This demonstrates a move away from just making laws and towards using stories to shift public opinion. If you follow that structure, idea, example, explanation, your arguments will be so much stronger. And I want to leave you with one last thing to chew on, a final question. When you think about everything we've talked about today, the stalled laws and the growing power of stories, ask yourself this. Is changing the story now more important than changing the law? There's no simple answer, of course, but that question is right at the heart of the environmental challenge today. Something to think about. Thanks for listening.